Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to CPAC 2025. I am in D.C. in the belly of the swamp, and we're reporting today, having some fun, man. We've run into some crazy people. J.D. Vance showed up this morning, and I've heard rumor that George Washington may be in the... Have you seen him?
We have.
Yes.
Y'all have seen...
We have.
George Washington is in the house today. Y'all, this is Glenn Baker. This is the Finish This Fight podcast, and we're here to tell you some truth today, y'all. I have got in the house, I have got Doug and Ralph from...
Yes, sir.
Heroic Pictures.
The American Miracle. Guys, this is a movie that's coming out June the
9th. Yep.
In theaters near you. And Doug, tell us a little bit about where did this movie come from? Well, first of all, give us like the 30-second brief. What's this movie about?
Yes, sir. June 9th, it's coming out in theaters all across America. It's about the 250th anniversary. We follow the revolution at its core through history, and you're going to love this movie. This is the true history of America. So get ready for it.
Man, 250's coming up in 2026. It is... Y'all, well, you've got a little gray in your hair there, brother.
A lot.
You do remember 1776. I mean 1976.
Yeah, 1976 I remember pretty well.
You know what? I do too. I was just a little old kid. I was 9 years old, I think. And that was a big deal, the 200th anniversary. That's crazy. What's 250 going to bring us?
Well,
this movie.
Yeah, this movie is one of them. We're hoping that this movie is going to be one of the key parts of the 250th celebration, because it really takes us back to when America's foundation was being laid and who those men and women were, what they meant, what they believed, what their faith was, and what drove them to do the incredible things that they did, and all those miracles that happened in our history.
So, Ralph, you're an executive producer for this movie.
Along with Doug.
So y'all have done some research. You've taken a look at what the tenacity of our people were that fought for our freedom back in that day. Let me ask you a question. Have you found that tenacity still here? Do you think it's still here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it is here. I think that it's perhaps been squelched in recent years, but I see personally more and more evidence of it being rekindled. And this is one event where it certainly is being rekindled. And we're hoping this movie will rekindle it as well.
I have to add on to that. When doing a movie about George Washington and the founders and the Continental Congress, you learn these personalities were big. But what was really cool is George Washington was the humble person that could put the weight of the world on him, and he would give it back to God, and he would keep driving until the job
say
was
that
done.
again. Say that again.
He was a humble man before the Lord. Now he was stoic. He was virtuous.
Right.
His mother was a Bible-believing Christian, and he learned, you don't go and just blabbermouth it all to the world to get your way. He believed in self-control. And it served him very well, because people saw that and said, yeah, you need to be our first president. He cared for all of his soldiers throughout the war. Whenever disaster was ready and upon him, he would consult the divine God, and then he would decide, okay, we need to retreat.
Right.
And some of those retreats were the providential hand of God. You could see that in the telling of this movie. This movie represents a book by Michael Medved called The American Miracle. These are all researched parts of history, so we're excited just to get actual truth of history out to America.
Right. Well, speaking of truth in history, and we start talking about our founding fathers, we were, I don't know the exact term, it really wasn't brainwashed or programmed. We were led to believe that when I think of founding fathers, I think of old guys like me that were involved with forming this country. As a historian of this, what's the average age of the founding fathers of this United States of America? Can you tell me?
They were, I can't tell you specifically, but they were young guys.
Yeah.
They were young guys. These guys were in their 20s and 30s, and I think there were even some in their late teens.
Yep.
So this was a whole different generation of people who really cared for this country and sought independence and liberty.
Well, I haven't had the opportunity to read the book, and I got the trailer or the screener the other night, but we've been so busy traveling that I haven't even had a chance to look at that. Tell me about the movie, and is it a story primarily about George Washington? Does it go into the Founding Fathers? Give me a breakdown of what this movie is.
Well, George Washington plays a major role because he was such a key figure during that period in American history.
Right.
But it really focuses on George Washington, on Thomas Jefferson, on John Adams. John Quincy Adams has a little bit of a role in there. Benjamin Franklin is in there. We tell a couple slave stories as well, because that was really the fulcrum point at the Constitutional Convention.
Right.
I mean, that gathering almost fell apart on the topic of slavery. So we deal fairly with all of those issues and with those individuals. But because George Washington was the personality that he was, and because his impact was so great, it really does focus a lot on him.
Okay.
And he is a part of the movie almost from its beginning through the end.
Okay.
We also cover Jefferson, Adams, and a lot of the forefathers, because the way the movie progresses, we start with the first 50th anniversary of America, where Jefferson and Adams dies on the same day, July 4th. It's unbelievable. Like, it's millions to one odds that would happen with two presidents. And so it starts the movie, and then it continues all the way through George Washington's life, the Continental Congress, and it ends with Mum Bet's story, the first African-American woman freed at the time of the Revolution. And then we have the first Black Minuteman. It was against the law to give a slave a gun.
Right.
This master gave his servant a gun and then freed him, and he served in the war. And then George Washington signed the letter to say, we all need to fight this war, and 10% of the army were black slaves.
I want you to come back and say that one more time.
That's amazing.
George Washington said we all need to fight this war.
We all need to fight this war.
Are y'all listening to that?
It was the last time until the Vietnam War that blacks and whites could fight together. The leadership of America went so left, it's not even funny. And it treated our own citizens so poorly, it's disgraceful. So I'm very proud of George Washington allowing every person, every citizen to come and be behind this Revolutionary War. We're in existence because of them and our patriots that fought that horrible war, but we won, thank goodness.
Doug, I'm not a historian. Ralph, I'm not a scholar. When it comes to these things, you know a lot more about it than I do.
I was going to say, that makes two of us.
Yes, but here's what I do know. We are in a war right now. And I tell people all the time, y'all may not see it. This is not a shoot, pew, pew war. This is an information war. This is a control war. This is power, money, and information. And we are in a war, and we've been manipulated for so long. And I think people are waking up to this. And President Trump, I was not a fan before he went down the escalator in 2015 and said he was running. I didn't dislike him, but it was just like, he's an arrogant businessman, reality TV guy, you know. But the moment he did that, and I saw everybody turn against him, because up to that point, everybody had loved Donald Trump. You know, he was in how many movies, how many songs talked about wanting to be like Trump. Everybody wanted to be like him. All of a sudden he turned. I started waking up, and then what happened to me, and I shared that with you before we came on air a while ago, that my freedom was taken away. Up to that point, I thought my government loved me, had my best interest at heart. So there was a wake-up call for me in 2017 to the point where I see we've been lied to, y'all. We are in a battle. We're in a war. And if we don't, each one of us take part in proclaiming our freedom, demanding our freedom, and if necessary, fighting for our freedom. I hope it doesn't ever come to that, but getting out and doing what you can do to guarantee that we don't lose this country, because we're on the precipice, just like they were then. You know, you talked about them going so far left. I don't know how we can ever pull out of it without all of us joining the fight. And people say, well, Glenn, what can I do? I don't know. I don't know what you can do. I don't even know what I can do. 8 months ago, I thought it was music and that was it. And then God whispered to me to produce a movie and be a part of a movie. Finish this fight. 90 days later, full-length feature documentary film. I didn't know I could do it. So here's what I'm telling y'all, and y'all just brought it up. This was yours. This is your fault right here.
Go for it.
Because I just went off on a tangent. This is your fault. There's something you can do. You're watching this somewhere, whether it's Rumble, YouTube, our channel on Stucci Media, wherever you're going to find it. There's something that you can do to help. Well, Glenn, what is it? I don't know. But you know. And if you'll listen to God, he'll whisper to you where you're supposed to be with him and with this battle, because we are a light on a hill, and this light's almost been extinguished. And it reminds me of the revolution and the time when we were fighting for our freedom to begin with. We're fighting for our freedom right now. It's just not another country. We're fighting for it from the top down. So I took off on a tangent because you just reminded me. That was a great line that we should all be willing to fight.
Yeah, but you raise an interesting point that I think is applicable to today, and the call that you just made for people to do what it is that they're motivated and inspired to do. I mean, when you think about who these soldiers were who fought under General Washington, they weren't paid a salary.
Yep.
They didn't have a pension.
Yep.
There was no retirement. Many of them, if not most of them, didn't have shoes.
Right.
They didn't know what they were going to go home to.
Right.
They weren't professional soldiers. They were pastors, and they were teenagers, and they were
Pastors.
bakers.
Imagine that.
And I mean, all sorts of people. What would it take today for that demographic to be motivated without compensation, without barely enough to eat, freezing cold, marching through the snow to the Battle of Trenton? There were eyewitnesses that said that there was a trail of blood in the snow as they were marching towards Trenton. What would it take for today's generation to sacrifice themselves like that for something that they really had no idea whether they were going to win or not?
Brother, I wish I knew that answer. I think we're seeing, in many cases, people standing up and starting to become part of something, and that usually it's happening because they see somebody else doing something.
This is a movement. This is the beginning of 5 movies with curriculum. The history that's in these pages of the book, now into a motion picture, is mind-boggling. Some of this history, I thought I was pretty intelligent. I thought I knew my history. I've learned a ton. And I think another action step is to come and see this movie. So part at June 9th, 2025, and start to understand that what was our forefathers all about? What were they doing? And we don't even go into the loyalist in this. This is just how to break away from an over-oppressive country of England at the time. So it's really important, to understand their motivation, their arguments, and to then see the providential hand of God on the forming of America. Sinful man, come and go, but God works in history. And it's amazing when you have the eyes to see it. And I think that's happening today. I think we're seeing some profound things happening. And that's the cause of our republic. A democratic republic has the voice of our citizens to speak up when we need to speak up.
Yeah.
And I think that's finally happening, and I think that's exciting because the good news is we do have peaceful exits of presidents because we sometimes need a new rally cry. We need a new administration. We need a new voice, and we're seeing that new voice. And I think that's a very exciting time ahead of us, and I hope it keeps going.
Well, guys, I'm just kind of an old, dumb country boy, and I've got a kind of a twisted sense of humor. So I've got to ask, through your research, through filming this movie and finding out what you found out about some of our forefathers, is there anything that we're going to learn about personalities that maybe we don't know? Is there anything that's kind of quirky? Anything that's going to make me laugh? Tell me a little bit about the story. Something just going to pop into your head.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of quirky things happening during the Continental Congress, for sure. I'm going to let Ralph expand on some of them, but there was a Maryland representative that always split the vote. So Maryland went back and forth, split the vote on every single large state, small state issue. And on the important vote, he got up and walked out of the room, and it changed the course of us becoming the United States of America. I mean, that's pretty funny. He just decides to get up and, if I just got up and walked off right now, you'd be like, what's going on? He just got up and walked out. I thought that was pretty quirky and pretty funny.
Well, I think one thing that maybe isn't being taught in schools even anymore is that there were so many miraculous events during that time in history, especially during the Revolutionary War, where George Washington should have been killed 100 times. And the man just seemed to be impervious to any sort of assault or attack. At Braddock's defeat in the Battle of Monongahela, he had 2 horses shot out from under him. He had holes shot through his coat. His hat was shot off his head. There wasn't a scratch on him. The retreat from Brooklyn Heights and from Dorchester Heights, where all of a sudden on a clear night this mysterious fog shows up out of nowhere and allows them to retreat under the nose of the British. You know, all of these things, there are countless events like that throughout that period of history, and that's why the movie and the book that it was based on is called The American Miracle, is because these miracles happen over and over and over and over again, and they define explanation other than what George Washington said, the divine hand of providence.
You know, this is the reason that I said, okay, I want to interview these guys, because I still believe God works that way today. He's worked that way in my life, and he's worked that way with this movie that we produce. I've seen it time and time again, where it's just, he does what can't be done, and he does it easily. And it's almost like it's comical. Yeah. I think my father probably has the greatest sense of humor that we can even imagine. I mean, he built me. I'm 5'4" on a good day with a 19.5-inch neck. I have to shop at the big and tall store and have everything cut down to size. Because like from here up, I'm 7'2". So he's got a great sense of humor. What do you want to expound on?
Well, I would just say, you know, the calling of Jeremiah, repent and seek the Lord, and he will forgive, and he will bless your nation. I think, you know, when we think about those different leaders who actually acknowledge God first of all and are humble before him and acknowledge their mistakes, God's ready to move in and save a people and a country, you know, and the whole world. And I think, you know, this is not a Christian movie, but we're Christians, and I think that in your heart of hearts, when you actually believe in Jesus, trust him as your Savior, you want to just be a light, like you said. You want to share the good news with people. Yep. And so we have been working on Heroic Pictures to find those kind of messages that are bringing our light to the world. And George Washington is one of those lights. Adams, Jefferson, definitely Ben Franklin. These guys, you know, have been painted incorrectly in history. We kind of want to redo this, the dial a little bit on their life and say, you know what, God used them in spite of their good and their bad, but God used them. And we should be very grateful for them because we have a great country. 250th is coming up. We need to celebrate.
You got to be thankful God doesn't wait till the perfect people show up before he uses them. That's the thing. You ain't got to clean up. You ain't got to change. He's going to change you if you just say yes. It's going to happen. And so when I'm asked, what can I do? Well, I don't know. But you need to listen because he's speaking to you, and then figure out how to get it done, and he'll help you get it done. Y'all, this is Glenn Baker, Finish This Fight podcast. These guys have the American Miracle. Where can they go online to find out more about you?
2 places. One, you can go to the movie's website, which is AmericanMiracleMovie.com, or to the studio website, which is www.heroic.pictures. AmericanMiracleMovie.com and Heroic.Pictures.
Okay, we're going to have that scrolling underneath here, guys, when we put this thing out today. Y'all look it up. Here's the thing. I'm going to tag team this interview today because I've got my friend, the director of Finish This Fight and the owner of Storyteller Film Company. And he is going to get technical with you guys because I'm not smart enough to get too technical. Finish This Fight podcast, FinishThisFight.com. Go to their website, theAmericanMiracleMovie.com. Support them and stay tuned for part 2 with Travis Conover.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back. Obviously, Finish This Fight podcast, but also Make Movies Great Again podcast. We're kind of doing a joint effort today because we're here at CPAC. Lots of amazing people, including Doug and Ralph. Really great to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
So, obviously, I know we talked with Glenn a little bit. I got to listen to all of that, but I want to kind of dig into some of the more film side of things because that's what I love and that's my expertise and kind of my calling into it. I always love asking people what initially inspired you to do this, because making a movie is not easy. from everything I've experienced in the last decade and a half. So what made you what pushed you over the edge and made you actually want to make this movie?
That's a great question. It lends itself to tell a little bit about our history. The three of us, Tim Mahoney, Ralph Oxtrose, and myself, Doug Maddox, we all had careers. Mine for 35 years, film school, aeronautical engineering school, and I started a business. And Tim did the same track. He started in film, went to CIA, and went into insurance, and then found his way back into film. And so we've all made movies independently. And about, I think it's only 4 years ago, maybe, we first met, maybe 5 years ago. The three of us met together, and we just had a heart to create a studio. And so we wanted to combine our life passions, our callings from the Lord, to combine it together and launch Heroic Pictures.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about Heroic Pictures. Is this your first project together?
Yeah, this is the first out of the hatch, and we have 5 represented here, and we have other films in the docket. So yeah, this is one of many.
What do you mean 5 represented here? What do you mean by that?
Well, the movie, The American Miracle, it's the first movie that we made as Heroic Pictures. We've been involved in over 20 feature films and television series and documentaries individually for decades.
Okay.
But this is the first time we got together, and when we formed Heroic Pictures, which we formed as a non-profit studio, it's a 501c3 non-profit motion picture studio, we were approached by Michael Medved, who was he was the host of Sneak Previews on PBS for 15 years.
Sure.
Syndicated radio host. He's on the editorial board of USA Today. I mean, he's a very well-known figure in the United States and commentator.
Sure.
He wrote the original book in 2016, The American Miracle, which became a New York Times bestseller. So he had worked with Tim Mahoney before, our third principal in Heroic Pictures.
Okay.
And he came to us and said, I understand you guys just formed Heroic Pictures. I've got the perfect project for you. And after the conversations with him, we realized that story of America's foundational history is so replete with heroes.
Yeah,
and with heroic stories and these miraculous stories that it was right down our alley. It was exactly the kind of movie that we wanted to make.
Okay.
So that's how we ended up making The American Miracle. And what Doug said about 3 or 4 more, we have the rights to 2 of Michael's books. This is the original, The American Miracle.
That's great.
The sequel he wrote to that was God's Hand on America. And we have the rights to those. Between those, we just scratched the surface with The American Miracle.
Yeah.
There's at least another 3 or 4 movies there. So that's why we want the first movie to be very successful so that we can continue making movies like this.
So tell me about this movie. Is this theatrical? Is this documentarial? Like, what is the actual contents of it? Is it a mix?
It's a docudrama.
Okay.
It's about 80% drama and 20% documentary.
Okay.
And the reason it became a docudrama, it was originally going to be a narrative, dramatic movie. With just acting.
Yeah.
But Michael Medved actually came to us and he said, unless we put some scholars in there, like Pulitzer Prize winners in history and writers like Joseph Ellis and scholars like Robbie George from Princeton University and Akhil Amar from Yale.
Unless
we put them in there, people will accuse us of fabricating these miracles and telling stories of these people that are just sort of came out of our head. And that's why the scholars are in there, because they say, this happened exactly the way that the movie is depicting. And in some cases, it was even more miraculous than that.
So when you say miracles, walk me down that road, because a lot of people will look at this from any number of worldviews, right? Whether they're Christian, whether they're just more agnostic or Buddhist or whatever, right? I mean, American history is not confined to one religion because we're a melting pot here. So talk me through, when you say miracle, define what you mean by that.
Yeah, so a good way to put it is the providential hand of God working in history. That's the precise, there's a definition of the providence of God. God acting in the course of a people and a country benevolently. He does his work, and if you have eyes to see it, you see it. And we're kind of going from the book side of saying, you know what? Maybe there's something to that.
Yeah.
The Judeo-Christian values that come through. Michael Medved is Orthodox Jew, and he follows this through from that vantage point and saying history is not just what you think it is. It's maybe a spiritual connection.
Yeah.
We don't get too far into some of the esoteric side of it,
Sure.
but it's convincing that you see about, I think we have 5 instances in this movie where George Washington was spared his life over and over and over again. Bullets going through his coat,
I was gonna
bullets
say.
hitting his hat.
Yeah.
In a war, that was the introduction of guerrilla warfare at Monongahela,
Yeah.
right? And so all of his officers around him died. Horses were shot from under him. His general was killed. Everyone was massacred, basically, and miraculously, he lived. And he's still charging. He was known for the man that would go before his soldiers and charge in front of them to say, hey, you can follow me.
Yeah.
I'm not just asking you to go do it. I'm not watching from a hill. Generals used to watch from a hill. He actually led from the front.
Yeah.
And bullets flying, and he would still survive. Time and time again.
Incredible.
And one more point, which was really exciting. We got the original relatives of the Monongahela battle, Native Americans.
Yeah.
They came down from New York to participate in this movie.
I love that.
And their experience was genuine and awesome. And what it showed and reveals to me is like we need more unity and we need to tell the truth about our history.
Yes.
And so these guys that know their history want to tell it as well. And so they wanted to say, this is what really happened at Monongahela. And there was a prophecy many years later from the chief who was pointing at his soldiers saying, kill that man, trying to kill George Washington. They couldn't kill him. How many years later? 10 years later?
So
15 years later, that chief brought some of his soldiers, knowing that George Washington was on a survey trip, came across this encampment, and George Washington welcomed him in.
Yeah.
And he goes, prophecy bids me to speak, and he gets up, and it scares everybody, and he talks about God. We tried to kill this man, but God raised him up for a purpose of great leadership of this nation.
The Native Americans were saying that.
The Native Americans said that, and it's
Wow.
been in a letter, and so it's actually true evidence. And so that's in our movie too. So those kinds of things are miracles to me.
That's fantastic.
When you have the Native Americans who are trying to kill him come and say, we see something special.
Yeah, we couldn't do it because.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And you know what's wild is I actually just started hearing some of those stories more recently, and I feel like the timing of this movie is really powerful because you didn't know when you started making it what the country was going to be like in 2025 right now.
2.5 years ago.
Yeah, we didn't know what was going to happen, right? So tell me a little bit about the production because that's the nerdy side of me that loves that stuff. I don't know if you want to get into budget or anything like that, but tell me about the process, you know, how you got everybody, where you got your people from, where did you film? Like, tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure.
Doug was in charge of the production and getting everything sort of set up and the budget as well. But I mean, what I can say is we followed the traditional, typical path of getting a movie produced. I mean, we had the first day of shooting, we shot for about 30 days, I guess. We had about a 30-day shoot, not consecutive, but with breaks in between.
Yeah.
But we shot for roughly 30 days and across the country. And our very first...
40 including your documentary interviews.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because we traveled all over the country and the UK to do the scholar interviews. But the very first day was our trial by fire. We had 100 actors on set.
Easily.
We had 100 actors on set and probably another 80 crew, roughly. And we were shooting in the middle of the woods at Fort Frederick, Maryland.
Wow.
So we were in a remote area. So we had to have transportation, getting everybody up into the woods where we were shooting. We shot with 4 cameras that day.
What did you shoot on?
We shot Varicam. We shot Panasonic's Varicam, which is their cinema system.
Okay, very cool.
A wonderful, wonderful system.
Yeah.
And the cameras see in the dark. I mean, that's getting a little.
Well, that's the crazy thing.
Getting into the
Technology
weeds.
is absurd these days. This camera can see more than I can at night under the right settings. I'm like, what the heck is going on? You know.
Yeah.
But it makes filmmaking a lot easier than it. You didn't have to have 30 RE sky panels probably lighting up the dark.
Yeah, but other than that, I mean, everything we did was exactly the way that it would be on any other major motion picture set.
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
we had wardrobe and
Yeah.
hair and makeup, and we had a person who just specialized in wigs and building the sets and costumes. And you were a Revolutionary War. You know, period movies are the hardest to make because everything has to be accurate. You
Yeah.
can't spot somebody wearing a Seiko watch or a water bottle sitting on the ground somewhere in the background, or
love
wearing
period
glasses that aren't of the period.
Right.
So all of that, and amazingly, that first day went remarkably, miraculously well, and it was scorching heat as well.
Well, actually, that's one thing I wanted to ask too. Is obviously the movie is about the miracle of America even existing, right? Which is God ordained, in my opinion. And I think this movie may lead some other people down that road. But tell me some miracles that happen on set. Anytime I've made a movie where God's hand was in it, or he would receive some kind of glory in it, we would see miracle after miracle, things that should not have been able to happen. So this is, I think it's appropriate. Tell me some miracles that happened on set, or some things that stood out to you were like, wow, this is supposed to happen.
My wife and I have been making films for over 25 years, producing, directing over 35 years. And one of the things that we want is to bring our faith into action. So what we do is we open prayer, and people that don't want to join is fine. We have open sets, open crew, and those that would like to come in and participate, they're free to do that. And I think that's a miracle right there, to invite God into a set for safety, for his hand to be upon it.
Yeah.
And we saw that was a miraculous thing. It was the calmness. The feedback from the crew was like, this was such a well-run
It's a different
crew.
kind of set,
There was a lot of patience and kindness. There was just so many attributes of God that came through everybody.
Yeah.
There was no egos. It was just getting this story told in the most professional and excellent way that we possibly could do it.
Yeah.
And we did. And it was
If you
amazing.
had 200 people on set, I mean that's a lot to coordinate. That is a lot.
We had over 400 people, beginning to end.
So were these reenactors? Like, how did you get historically accurate?
Yes.
Did you just call reenactors and say, "Hey, we want to do something awesome here"?
The call to that's a different side, but the call to casting is unique with a historic piece like this.
It is, yeah.
So we had several special casting, and then we had our casting agent that was helping us. So we'd post on regular sites, and then we have been making films for a while, so we could actually make the call out to those actors that we've worked with in the past to see if they fit. We were meeting a lot of the historians at Mount Vernon and other places, and so we could call on them. And so the network is very small within this world. We feel like, you're one step away from knowing somebody that we may or may not know,
100%.
and so
It's a small world.
that's how we approached it to begin with. We would do comps, we would do movies that were like this, like Adams and Lincoln and things like that, and we take an inventory: who worked on it, what were the actors, who should we work with, and it was fun, to kind of dissect it and find the right people. I think that the Lord opens up doors that way. I've worked on movies where I would want the same crew, but schedules won't work out.
Yeah.
And so you watch the right people coming in. And I think that's the genius of it. It's like being open-handed enough to say, okay, how's this going to work out? Let's trust God. And treating people nice. Anything else on that point?
I mean, excuse me, probably as well as we do, that when you have so many people on set and you're shooting on schedule and you're dependent on weather being cooperative and all of that, everything has to work like clockwork, and something always goes wrong. There's a problem on set, or there's a medical issue, or there's a security issue, or the right permit didn't get pulled, or something else. We constantly reflect on the fact of how impossibly smooth the entire shoot went. I mean, the weather was great, except for the fact that it was sweltering heat. When we shot in Petersburg, Virginia, I mean, we were in the 90s, in the upper 90s, in the open sun, and actors are wearing period costumes, so they're wearing wool, felt. Ladies, we had one poor woman pass out. God bless her. I mean, but as soon as she was revived, she wanted to get back on set. She was she was an elderly woman, and she wanted to be back and be on set. So
that's amazing.
That's really one of the great miracles of how smoothly everything went.
Yeah. Well, we shot The Penitent Thief at Capernaum Village in Texas, middle of summer, right before season 1 of The Chosen came in. Their trucks were coming in as we were leaving, making that movie. and it was $1.15 some days,
Wow.
and we were out, sitting outside looking like it's the desert, and it was not fun. But we had what I love about a set like that, where it's run well and it's run by people that actually care. Because you can tell the difference, right? If you've been on a set where the director, producers don't give a rip about anybody but themselves on the set, or the actors, we had executive producers running buckets full of ice and water bottles and giving them to people, giving them the background extra, like, here you go, guys, make sure you stay hydrated, stay safe, get, wet towels. And that kind of set, the culture really is top down. And when you have people like yourselves that are producing, right, executive producing, and or directing, and they have a culture of honor and integrity, and a lot of times that comes from some type of belief in God, right? It trickles down, and those miracles can align in that way. So I love to hear that. I think
I was there actually that day that The Chosen went and did their first location scouting.
Really? Okay.
The very first day.
Okay.
It was so funny. And,
were you working with hand in hand with Dallas, or you were just with a group
I
of scouts?
interviewed Dallas for a show that we did, Champions of Networking.
Okay.
And it was his first day. He came off of his motion picture that didn't succeed as well as he wanted to, and he thought he was out, And he told me, this was a miracle. I've never worked with any of these people before, and here we are doing The Chosen, and look where that's gone.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, that's blown up.
Capernaum, give them a shout out too, because we ended up renting 3 different wardrobes because we had to do militiamen, we had to do women's dressing, we had to do, we dressed a lot of
Costuming
people.
is a big deal.
So Capernaum, we rented from their studio, and that worked out terrific.
Well, when it's interesting, when we did The Penitent Thief, Capernaum was kind of, I don't want to say struggling. They did a lot of live action stuff. But The Chosen brought them to a whole nother level, to where now they have more wardrobe, more costuming, things like that. So that's interesting to hear you say that.
Can we talk about where to find this movie? And
I totally want to do that. We'll wrap it up for you guys. I think we're getting close to the top of the hour here. But yeah, tell me exactly how I can see it, how they can see it, where to find you personally if you care about that, or really how to support your studio. It's a 501c3.
Yep, you can go and donate online. You can go to AmericanMiracleMovie.com. There's a little donate button.
Yep.
You'll get this amazing book that's the behind the scenes if you donate to the cause and the movement. But more importantly, we need you to show up at the theater.
Yeah.
Because June 9th, we are going to start this nationwide incredible movement, but we need you guys to actually come and see this amazing movie about our history, and it's going to be good. So enjoy it. Come out to others.
Yeah, definitely. We want to make sure the theaters are packed on June 9th, 10th, and 11th when the movie begins to show across the country. There'll be the thousands theaters across the country because we would like it to be extended through the 4th of July. But the only reason the distributor is going to do that is if there's a fantastic showing on June 9th, 10th, and 11th. So that's why we want to get as many people as possible there.
Well, I'm personally, I can speak personally for myself. I'm going to go see it, and I will be praying for its success.
Thank you.
Because America exports culture. We don't export goods, right? We import we import electricity, for God's sake, but we export culture, and we need to change the culture. We'll talk behind, turned off cameras some more, because I really want to get in your ear about some interesting things that God's been showing me and that I'm working on right now. But please go support this. It's so important that we export the right culture and we vote with our dollar. If you are voting for Fast and Furious 26 with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, it is not going to bless the country or the world. Vote with your dollar. Go see this movie. Show the world that we want to export truth, and we want to export some great quality entertainment made by some clearly awesome guys. So thanks for coming. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you.